This has been a spectacular 24 hours for the Chicago Cubs. First, they come back from 7 runs down, score 12, and win a thrilling game. Then it appears Dansby Swanson's injury is just cramps. Thank goodness. And now somehow Jed Hoyer has taken his offseason from what I graded as a BB+. He's an A now. He's an A now. He gets an extension done not only with Nico Hoerner, but now also with Ian Happ today. The big news, 3 years, $61 million, and a full no-trade clause. Happ is staying with the Cubs. I got to tell you, I'm shocked. Almost anything you could have told me today would have been less shocking than this deal getting done because, A, I thought they had passed that bridge, and I thought Happ was saying, you know what, greener pastures after Shohei Ohtani, I'm going to be the next big free agent position player out there next year. And he would have been right. But he's clearly giving a hometown discount to the Cubs because he loves playing here.
He's said all along that he wanted to be here, and I mean, kudos to Jed Hoyer, man. Like, this is such a good deal for the team. I'm happy for Ian Happ to get the big payday, and Jed just keeps kind of proving that he's not unwilling to sign big contracts and sign extensions. He just wants it for the right people on terms that agree with his long-term timeline, and credit to everybody. Happ wanted to stay. He gets a big payday, and Jed gets to keep building core members of this next great Cubs team, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting out on the balcony. I came
Sunning
into the studio.
yourself.
It's 70 degrees April, and the Cubs have won, 5 out of 6 coming into today?
Yeah.
And, you know, you're going for a sweep, and then out of nowhere, Jed Hoyer gets this deal done. And, you know, I made this video. I put it on my Instagram account, was just hanging out on the balcony like, hey, it's 70 in April in Chicago. Like, the only thing that can make this better is if the Cubs sweep today. And then Jed Hoyer was like, hold my beer, brother. And so here we are. And the reason that I really love this, the reason I really do is because, and we've said it so many times, you cannot bank on the prospects. We can be as high as we want about PCA. Right. We can be as high as we want about Kevin Alcantara. We can be as high as we want about Brennan Davis. But they haven't proved anything. And as Ian Happ is a great example. When he came up, okay, he had a really solid rookie year, and then he went through a lot of struggles, right? You don't know what you're going to get out of these prospects. You just don't. I don't care if PCA finds himself in the top 10 of minor league prospects by the end of the year. You don't know what you're going to get. And it's the same thing with all the ones I already said already. So to be able to get up a 28-year-old outfielder who was an all-star last year, coming off his most consistent season of his career, and now starting the first 10 games of the year off to the hottest start of his career, and get him at the price that you got him at the length that you got him at, because now that they extended him, it still doesn't like force the Cubs to have to make significant changes with some of those prospects, because it's not like it's a 7-year deal.
Right.
It's just another, 3 years?
3 more years.
Obviously, we're going to have to wait and see how this all pans out with some of these prospects, because obviously 1 or 2 might be moved now for who knows what. But at this moment in time, with where this team is at, this is perfect for the Cubs. You couldn't ask for a better deal. And we all sat here thinking, oh, he's going to want 5 years, $100 million, blah, blah. In which I would have given him that too.
No,
yeah.
The fact that he got 3 years, 61, and was like happy with that, I mean, it probably helps that he wanted to be here. But also, like, kudos to Jed Hoyer for getting it done. And with all the criticism the last 5 years, really, about not being able to extend KB, Javi, Rizzo, Contreras, which that's a lot different from those other 3, in my opinion. The fact that he got this done with Hoerner and Happ now is huge for the present and the future of this team.
Both sides deserve major credit for it, because he's obviously taking less than he could make in free agency. He wants to be here. Jed for getting it done with both guys. Something in common between Hoerner and Happ. Actually, multiple things. They're both really good baseball players. They're both homegrown Cubs, which is another reason you're trying to get guys that you want to extend that were your own guys. You don't want to keep having to trade for guys.
Yeah.
So you looked at him and you were like, well, that's not really a guy I want to let go. Am I only letting him go because of money? Well, now they get the great deal. But the third thing that's in common with these guys, great character.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
They're both they're everything you want in a clubhouse guy, in a leadership role, in a leading on and off the field and showing this is the way you do it to the young guys. And like Cody said, the deal is perfect. There is a full no trade clause because he wants the assurance of like, listen, I'm going to give you the discount. I want you to let me know that I'm going to be here. Okay. So let's say Brennan Davis and Canario and PCA all come up and they all start pushing Seiya Suzuki and whoever might be in center field and Ian Happ in left. Let's say they all come up and they all hit, which is fairly unlikely that they all hit because the Cubs got lucky the first time they did the rebuild and that worked. But even if they did and they were so much better than Ian Happ, you now have a contract for a guy that you can live with as your fourth outfielder.
Yeah, or a DH.
Or a DH. Either way, and he's a left-handed bat. And on top of that, it's also when it gets down to the last like $20 million of the deal, if all hell broke loose and it all fell apart for Ian Happ, which nobody expects it to, it's an easy one to walk away from too.
Yeah.
It's just not a life, or it's not $100 million sitting over your head that you'd have to eat.
It's not going to put the Cubs back
in any way, shape, or form.
If he has a down year or whatever.
Don't buy the people that are going to tell you this is stopping the prospects. I'll tell you one thing it does do. It gives you some flexibility because, A, you could go that route and let those prospects push Happ to move him to either stay in left or maybe Canario or somebody's a DH instead, any of those roles, or one of those guys, one of those outfield prospects, all of a sudden becomes the trade bait that you need to get your star third baseman or some other position. Shohei Ohtani. But it does.
For real, yeah.
100% flexibility.
On the prospect thing, right, there's a few angles on that. Like Cody said, those guys still have to prove it. Their PCA is an unbelievable talent, and we expect big things. Still got to prove it. When we came into this offseason, you looked at who the Cubs had under contract long-term, and it wasn't a lot of people. Right? It was Seiya. And then until they made some of these moves, you're wondering, hey, like, where is this core coming from if it's not all these young guys? And as you said, credit to Jed Hoyer, right? You've got Dansby Swanson locked in. You've got now Nico Horner and Ian Happ locked in for this next run, and then you build around it. But Seiya. You also added Seiya, Jamison Tyone this offseason to be a part of that. Like, you have made those moves. And on the prospect thing, right? What a wonderful, wonderful problem that would be to have, right? If Brennan, PCA, Canario, they're all coming up and knocking on the door. As we said, when you looked at that roster, who was here long-term? You need those assurances long-term. If you have guys that come up and bang the door down, that would be amazing. And then you deal with it. Somebody plays center. Somebody learns how to play first. Somebody DHs. It doesn't matter, right? Bring in good players. Develop good players. Sign good players. Extend good players. And worry about where they all play later. Right? Yeah. We just watched a team last year where we were asking the opposite question. We were like, where are the good players for some of these positions? That is a pipe dream that they would all be great at the same time. Like you said, in 2016, 2015, the Cubs got so lucky. Magic.
108-year magic.
That all happened at the same time. Some of those guys had the best years of their career all at the same time. If that happens again, amazing. Let's go win another championship, right? You lock up good players and you figure out the rest later. This is a great, great deal. It's so low stakes from the Cubs' perspective, right? Because it's just not a long-term deal. And as we've all said, right, like the other thing too, like credit to Jed Hoyer, but major, major credit to Ian Happ, right? He worked his butt off to get this payday. As you said, Cody, he had such a kind of like up and down start to his career, had to start, the one season he unexpectedly got sent down right as camp was breaking. He worked through all of it. He improved his plate discipline. Now you look at him, he's a gold glover. He's a great base runner. He's a switch hitter that sprays the ball all over the field. He takes his walks. He's a great player and a great player to build around when you look at the first kind of cornerstones that the Cubs have in Nico and Dansby, right? Nico, a big contact guy. Dansby kind of doing it all at this point. And the profile that Ian adds to that, now you're starting to build a more diversified group as you like build this out into the future, especially when, say, a Suzuki comes back.
Maybe we should have seen this last night in the broadcast. Maybe we should have been listening to Jed Hoyer, but I thought the negativity in my mind made me think of the opposite, which is funny because maybe the Cubs are starting to change that narrative. But Jed Hoyer was in the broadcast booth, and Happ came up, and he's like, and how about this guy? And he starts raving about Ian Happ. And look at the start he's off doing. He does everything you want. And the first thing that popped into my mind was, well, then, A, why couldn't you get a deal done? And are you actually trying to talk up this guy's trade value before we're only 10 games into the season? Like, is that what's happening here? That was the negativity creeping into my mind. What I should have thought, and maybe I would the next time around now because we've seen him sign Horner and Happ, was he's close to a deal with this guy. He's talking him up because he wants the deal inked and he wants to brag about it before the news comes out.
Yeah.
And that's what was really going on.
Yeah. I mean, again, kudos to Jed Hoyer. This is like Jed Hoyer, he has earned a little bit of faith from the Cubs fans now.
Yes,
I mean,
has.
if you are a Cubs fan and you are still sitting at home or in your freaking mom's basement with angst and anger because they were unable to get things done with Baez, Bryant, and Rizzo, and that whole like storyline that I feel like it just keeps getting dragged on, then I personally don't know what to tell you other than to go outside for a couple hours. All right.
Especially now, it's nice.
What Jed has been able to do, and in a way, he is right. Remember last year I talked about how he said that this wasn't going to be a rebuild. Mm-hmm. He said that this whole process wasn't going to be a rebuild. And last year's team, when I criticized that quote, when he said that after the trade deadline of 2021, obviously that team was not good in the first half. They played a lot better in the second half. And then they had the offseason. And here we are, 6-4, 10 games in. But the thing is with these contract extensions and with the moves they made in the offseason, Dansby Swanson, the big one,
yep.
Getting a guy like Tyone, and even some of the, like Mancini, huge game yesterday. He's shown flashes. Has he got to the point where you want him yet? No. Hosmer has been way better than any of us expected.
Sure.
Some of the moves that he's made, like even the ones that aren't like big, have so far have been very fun to watch. Boxberger, been very good. Fulmer, outside giving up that homer. 6-out save on Saturday in the Steel Star. All these like small moves on top of the Swanson deal so far have looked good. And again, with these contract extensions, I feel like as a fan base, you can feel like, all right, they're building something here. And it's not going to be, we're not going into this season trying to trade half the team at the deadline like a lot of people believed on opening day what was going to happen. With this contract extension, it's a sign of showing that, hey, we're here and we're coming.
Yeah.
Watch out, St. Louis. Watch out, Milwaukee. We're coming. And that's what gets me excited. Yes, there's still a lot of things to work on. Yes, they got to, continue to build the farm in terms of those guys' development in order for that next step to really be taken. But again, the point of what I'm trying to get across here is getting these contract extensions done is very telling of where the Cubs or who the Cubs feel is the guys they want to be part of the next great Cubs team. And with the start of the season on top of this and how they won last night and everything, I don't know how you can be a Cubs fan at home right now and not just be ecstatic and be this ecstatic. I don't think I've been this ecstatic about the Chicago Cubs since 2018.
The vibes are elite right now. And I think, to your point, I think it just lends a lot of credence to Jed's putting action to his words, right? Yes. When some of those extensions didn't get done, when they, traded guys at the deadline, or when Wilson just ended up walking, a lot of people wondered, what does Jed mean? And when is he actually going to put action to these words? But you're starting to see it happening, right? He's repeatedly talked about deals at the right time, at the right size, and for the right players. And we needed to see it, but then you start to see it, and you're like, okay, he is doing exactly what he said he was going to do. He's keeping guys on terms that he is comfortable with, that fit the timeline that they want. And at a time before all of this starts to happen, I understand it's easy to kind of question that and be a little uneasy about that, but you're watching him do exactly what he's been talking about for the last few years.
And the message is also clear to the prospects coming up. Look at Ian Happ. Hard work pays off.
Yeah.
It's not linear, as Theo used to say. Ian Happ went down to the minors, was not happy about it. Struggled at the minors for a little bit, came back up, has worked his way into being a Gold Glover, an all-star, and now he got his payday, $61 million in extension from the Cubs. The Cubs have started the phrase, next starts here. I'm starting to believe him. I'm starting to believe him. And as far as we go, you know what we say? Hashtag vibe with us.